Hi everybody, welcome to our live council meeting for dated Wednesday the 16th of December 2020. In order, live streaming the meeting chair, I give my consent for this open council meeting to be streamed live, recorded and published online in accordance with council's live streaming policy and governance rules. The chair and or the CEO have the discretion and authority at any time to direct the termination or interruption of live streaming. Such direction will only be given in exceptional circumstances where deemed relevant. Circumstances may include instances where the content of debate is considered misleading, defamatory, or potentially inappropriate to be published. Attendees are advised that they may be subject to legal action if their actions result in inappropriate and or unacceptable behaviour and or comments. Virtual meeting statement. The COVID-19 Omnibus Bill 2020 provision allows council meeting attendances by electronic means. The requirements of this meeting being open to the public is satisfied by the meeting being streamed live to council's internet. In the event of a technical issue with the live stream, the meeting will be adjourned. Councils are deemed to be as being present in attendance if they can hear proceedings, they can see other members in attendance and can be seen by other members, and they can be heard to speak. Just a reminder that we turn our mobile phones off. I now ask Councillor David Rooks to read the statement of acknowledgement.
Thank you, Mayor Harry. Glasgow Shire Council acknowledges the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people as the first Australians and recognises that they have a unique relationship with the land and water. Council further recognises that we are situated on the lands of the traditional owners, the Bunurong members of the Kulin Nation who have lived here for thousands of years. We offer our respect to their elders past and present, and through them all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people wherever they are.
Thank you, Councillor Rooks, and I now ask Councillor Ronnie Bauer for that councillor statement.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. All members of this council pledge to the Bass Coast Shire community to consider every item listed on this agenda based on the individual merits of each item without bias or prejudice, by maintaining an open mind and disregarding councillors' personal interests so as to avoid any conflict with our public duty. Any councillor having a conflict of interest in an item will make a proper prior disclosure to the meeting and will not participate in the debate or vote on the issue.
Thank you, Councillor Bauer. Present and apologies. I have no apologies. Declaration of interests. I have two declarations of interests. Councillor David Rooks has declared a conflict of interest for agenda item number H2 and agenda item H9. And myself, I have a declaration of a conflict of interest in a closed council item later on. Confirmation of minutes for the council meeting held on the 25th of November 2020. Could I have somebody move and second that the minutes of the council meeting held on the 25th of November 2020 be confirmed? Councillor Kent, seconded Councillor Bauer. All in favour? Councillor Tassari, Bauer, Lark, Rooks, Whelan, Holstead, Kent, Laserve and Lang. Carried. Public question time. Okay, we have a few questions here from the public. I will read the questions out and our CEO, Ms. Ali Wasty, shall give the response. So the first question is from Kevin Griffin and it's regarding the Inverloch Jetty. Alcohol-induced violence and dangerous behaviour at the Inverloch Jetty poses a serious risk to community safety and amenity. Will this council make urgent resolutions to declare the Inverloch Jetty precinct an alcohol-free area as is allowed under the Bass Coast Shire Council Local Law Number 1, Neighbourhood Amenity 2012?
Through the Mayor, Victoria Police has absolute authority to protect the health and safety of the general public and use powers at their disposal to address antisocial behaviour, regardless of whether it occurs at a place that prohibits the consumption of alcohol or not. As you are no doubt aware, alcohol is often a contributing factor to antisocial behaviour. However, it is often not the only factor, and active vigilance and police presence is required if a public place is experiencing issues. Any change to a local law requires significant engagement with the community so people can have an opportunity to express their views. We will continue to monitor the situation, and we are pleased that there is a strong police presence at Inverloch, San Remo, Cowes and other tourist hotspots across the Shire over the holiday season.
Thank you, Ms Wasty. Question 2 is also from Kevin Griffin, and the topic is receipt acknowledgement. Why is it that some councillors and some council officers do not offer the basic civil courtesy of a receipt acknowledgement to community members who write to them?
Through the Mayor, we have a customer-centric approach, and at all times we endeavour to meet the timeframes for response that are outlined in our customer service charter. Should a community member believe that we have fallen short in this regard, they can contact our complaints handling officer or lodge a complaint with the Ombudsman.
Question 3 is from Graham Jolly, and the topic is black spot risk assessment, and there's 2 questions. Lifesaving Victoria published the black spot risk assessment for Bass Coast 2019 report, of which council was named as a land manager stakeholder. Please provide the total listings of recommendations listed in the report for all stakeholders. And question 2, the black spot risk assessment for the Bass Coast 2019 report identified actions council is to consider for ongoing public safety. List all council actions, including completed actions, as of the 14th of December 2020.
Through the Mayor, the report provides high-level recommendations across a number of areas, including education and information, providing warnings, signage and activity management, life-saving services and increasing survival skills. Lifesaving Victoria take the lead on water safety and drowning prevention initiatives that foster resilience in communities and encourage active participation in aquatic recreation. Council meets regularly with Lifesaving Victoria, Victoria Police, Phillip Island Nature Parks and Parks Victoria in relation to coastal risk mitigation activities and how to provide consistent messages to the community about beach safety. Council beach safety signage is consistent with Australian standards, and Council recently reviewed improved signage in Kilcunda, taking into consideration feedback provided in the report. The key message from Lifesaving Victoria is to plan your trip to the beach this summer. All beaches even can be dangerous and have hidden dangers such as rips. Make sure to check the weather and conditions. Use the beachsafe.org.au website to find patrolled beaches, read safety signs, and always go swimming with a friend.
Thank you, Ms Wasty. Question number 4 is from Gay Jolly. The topic is the Cowes Community and Cultural Centre. Would you please provide a status update report on the staged progress for the new Cowes Community and Cultural Centre? Timelines, companies involved, tenders, expenditure, and council's in-house part in the multi-year project.
Through the Mayor, Council appointed Jackson Clements Burrows Architects in June 2020 to undertake the design of the new Cowes Cultural and Community Centre. Jackson Clement Burrows Architects are currently in the detailed design stage of the project and are anticipated to complete this stage early March 2021. On completion of the detailed design stage, Council will be in a position to go to tender for the principal construction company. Council has also engaged Slattery, a quantity surveyor, to work in parallel with the design team to provide independent cost plans at each stage of the design process. As the designs for the Cowes Cultural and Community Centre are further progressed, the cost plans will be updated to reflect the more comprehensive specifications. When the completed drawing package is finalised, A final cost plan will be procured to reflect the project construction and fit out budget as allocated by council.
Thank you, Ms Wasty. Question 5 is also from Gay Jolly, and its topic is Cows Carnival site. Would you please provide a status update report for the Cows Carnival site purchase and master plan?
Through the Mayor. Council successfully had a public acquisition overlay applied to the land on the corner of Phillip Island Road and Ventnor Road in 2020. The purposes of this overlay was for the establishment of a recreation precinct. Once the site is in the ownership of council, a master planning process will be undertaken with the community and sporting groups and associations to ensure the site meets the growing needs of the Shire.
Question number 6 is from Keith Godridge, and it has 2 questions. Topic: Surf Parade shared pathway. What further information was requested by DELP in relation to council's planning permit application for option 2 of the design proposal for the Surf Parade shared path? And question 2, last month council advised in response to question D6 that officers are finalising their response to DELP's request for additional information. Will council publish its response to DELP?
Through the Mayor. The Department of Environment, Land, Water and Planning has requested that council provide significant additional details on the forecasted rates of erosion and has demonstrated that it has exercised all to avoid and minimise options for native vegetation removal on the proposed path alignment. It is envisaged that the requested information will be submitted to the department by the end of December. A statement will be loaded on our website with a status update of the project, which will include a summary of the response made to the department.
Question 7 is from Andrew Marston as a representative of the Bass Coast Ratepayers and Residents Association. His topic is community connection sessions. Council now has experience in running of virtual meetings. So when will community connection sessions recommence in a virtual environment? And if there is currently no plan to do this, will council please detail to the community the reasons why not?
Through the Mayor, council will review its approach to community connection sessions in early 2021 as part of a broader discussion around community engagement. Council is looking forward to engaging with the community and getting these restarted in a timely manner.
And question 8 is also from Andrew Marston, as from the Bass Coast Ratepayers and Residents Association, and the topic is red bin collection. At last month's meeting, mention was made of a briefing by officers to councillors with advice given that issues around weekly bin collections are complex. Would council kindly provide the community a short bullet point list of all factors that hinder delivery of such a service throughout peak holiday periods?
Through the Mayor, the current fleet of vehicles is fully utilised, servicing the current collection schedule. Whilst the peak holiday period is short, several months lead time to procure and add significant costs to the general waste service. These additional costs would ultimately be funded by ratepayers that is not currently factored into the waste charge. Households with surplus waste are able to pay for a second 120 litre red bin or a larger 240 litre red bin. They are able to engage private contractors to provide an alternate week service for their red bin or take their additional waste to a transfer station or landfill and pay the appropriate fee. An increase to the frequency of waste landfill collections across the municipality is counter to council's waste management strategy. Any change to current practice would require a decision of council.
Thank you, Ms Wasty. So we have, so that is all, that's the end of the question time. So we thank you all for putting forward your questions. So we now have a petitions, joint letters, deputations and correspondence. And we have a petition put forward for amendments to speed limits on Archies Creek Road. I believe we have a recommendation to deal with this petition today. Can I have somebody move and second the recommendation, please? Councillor Holstead, and seconded. Councillor Kent. Councillor Holstead, you may speak to the recommendation. You're on mute, Councillor Holstead. and
Yes,
that's the
sorry.
first one.
I don't think I need to speak to this. Other than the fact that it's obviously a need in the local community, that it is a small community. The fact that there's only 14 signatures, I believe, on the petition is probably the full community in itself, being Archies Creek, and I think that in itself people tend to think that they can still do 100 through these areas, and they just, you just can't. It's so dangerous. So I'm glad that we're putting this recommendation up, and I hope that it's successful in reducing the speed limit.
Thank you, Councillor Holstead. Councillor Kent.
I personally couldn't add anything to the expert evidence given by Councillor Holstead.
Thank you very much, Councillor Kent. Would anyone else like to speak to or against this recommendation? No? Councillor Holstead, would you like to close or put it straight to a vote?
Put it straight to the vote. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
All in favour of the recommendation as it reads? Councillors Tassari, Bauer, Lark, Rooks, Whelan, Holstead, Kent, Blaserve and Lang. Carried. Okay, brings us to notices of motion. So we have two notices of motion. Item number F1 228/20 planning application permit 120388. Councillor Lang, would you like to move and read your motion without speaking to it?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I, Councillor Letitia Lang, hereby give notice that I intend to move a motion at the ordinary meeting on 16th of December 2020, which reads as follows. Planning application permit 120388. Motion that the Minister for Planning has called in the planning application permit for Dandy Premix Quarries and notes there is community concern about existing sand mines and requests council officers investigate and confirm that the original council planning permit conditions are fulfilled in regard to Dandy Premix Quarries 2013 permit application. Number 2, council recognises that the proposal is at odds with council's biodiversity biolinks strategy 2018 and the Minister for Planning's declaration of the Bass Coast Shire as a distinctive area and landscape. Number 3, council acknowledges that there are 73 community objections to the planning application. Number 4, council acknowledges that the strip of land that is currently under application for vegetation removal is the only piece of contiguous woodland available for fauna to move north-south between the Gerties Nature Conservation Reserve and the Grantville Bushland Reserve. Number 5, council develop a submission to the Standing Advisory Panel which will review the plan for extracting the sand to address the significant community concerns which include the impact on noise amenity, traffic amenity, community character, environmental degradation and rehabilitation of the area. Number 6, council requests that the state government indemnify the Shire for any liabilities arising as a result of insufficient mining rehabilitation bonds being held by the Earth Resources Regulator for the Dandy Premix site. And number 7, council requests the Minister for Planning accept a councillor and council officer present its submission in person to the Standing Advisory Panel.
Thank you, Councillor Lang. Can I have somebody second that motion? Councillor Holstead. Councillor Lang, would you like to now speak to your notice of motion?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to start firstly by clarifying that the intention of this motion is not to demonise Dandy Premix who have made the application, and it is and to recognise that it is a legitimate business that has already been operating within the Shire with approval from the Shire. So the intention is to seek councillor support to recognise that this application, if it were to move forward as it's, which we are unable to make a decision on because it's been called in by the Minister, we're acknowledging that it raises a number of community concerns. So I have read through the 73 objections from the community, and a significant number of objectors have referred to the enjoyment and mental health advantages from living near either the Gerties Conservation Reserve or the Grantville Bushland Reserve. So the current application proposes to undertake mining practices adjoining Deep Creek and within 5 kilometres from the Ramsar listed Western Port wetland biosphere. I'm sorry, I don't know what the acronym Ramsar actually stands for, but I think it's to do with the environment. So just to clarify that, I'll have to get clarification on that one. And the strip of woodland that the Dandy Premix actually would like to clear is actually the only piece of vegetation that joins those two reserves. So in this motion, I would like to ensure that we are sending a message to the community that we hear their concerns and that we would like to, in our submission to the Standing Advisory Panel when it's been called in by the Minister, that we reflect those concerns in our submission, and that also the 73 objections from the community are being taken on board by that Standing Advisory Panel in that application process. So it's a pretty significant piece of bushland reserve that they want to clear. It doesn't really align with a lot of the ideals of the BioLink strategy that Council approved in 2018. And not only that, there are significant community concerns around noise amenity and the impact that about 250 trucks exiting a quarry will have on a community if the operation time is extended until 10 p.m. And there's also, that's pretty much covers it. A lot of it's in the background as well to the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Lang. Councillor Holstead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Councillor Lang. I really don't have too much more to add. I think, firstly, I'd like to thank Councillor Lang for her motion. It does express the crucial importance of the site to the community and the critical need to retain that woodland. So I won't go any further than to say I'm really impressed by Councillor Lang's research on this, and it's been a well thought out motion, and I'd like to commend this motion and the supporting background to the standing panel and ask that they consider it in its entirety.
Thank you, Councillor Holstead. Would anyone else like to speak to or against this motion? Councillor Whelan.
Just briefly, Mr. Mayor, firstly, be smart, Alec. Ramsar is a city in Iran where the convention was signed, so there you go. I thank Councillor Lang for this resolution. I think it's a good one. It's clear where the Minister's intention is going, to feed the voracious appetite for sand in the city of Melbourne with the building activity that is occurring there and the plans for further building. I think the provision in respect to the rehabilitation bonds and things is particularly pertinent, something we need to do further work on. And one of the things that concerns me is, it was brought to my attention about the Auditor General has done a report which was fairly scathing about the regulator in this particular area. And I think that needs to be taken into account. It's like the fox being in charge of the hen house, really, what we're doing there. I have seen a disused mine site up behind the Holden Proving Ground, wasn't rehabilitated at all. And so I think we need to be mindful of this, and we need to make provisions for these sorts of things. And given that we don't control it, we need to be putting pressure on government to make sure they are being responsible in that direction. And the main reason I believe that Councillor Lang has brought this is to make sure the community concerns are addressed, and that we seek to be heard before the planning panel that the Minister will convene, and make sure those views are addressed. We have a good relationship with this government. We want to maintain that, but that doesn't mean we resile when we're indifferent to their opinion or their actions. And I think in this regard, we need to go in a very responsible way, but a very firm way, and at least the Minister will be hearing what our community thinks about these issues. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Whelan. Would anyone else like to speak to or against this motion? No? Councillor Lang, would you like to summarise or put it to a vote?
I think I'm ready to put it to a vote, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lang. All in favour of the notice of motion as it reads? Councillors Tassari, Bangor, Lark, Rooks, Whelan, Holstead, Kent, the third, and Lang. Carried. Item number F2, extraction mining industries in Bass Coast Shire Council. Councillor Lang, would you like to read your motion without speaking to it?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I, Councillor Letitia Lang, hereby give notice that I intend to move a motion at the ordinary meeting on 16th of December 2020, which reads as follows. Extractive mining industries in the Bass Coast Shire Council. That Council acknowledges the Minister for Planning statement that the availability of sand will contribute to the development of land within metropolitan Melbourne, including the delivery of key public infrastructure projects. That Council develop in partnership with the State Government and the community an extractive mining strategy for the Bass Coast Shire, which takes into account the Minister's declaration of the municipality as a distinctive area and landscape, the community's noise amenity and the intrinsic environment and tourism values of the Bass Coast Shire. Number 3, that Council requests the Earth Resources Regulator undertake an evaluation of the current estimates for all rehabilitation bonds being held for all extractive mining projects and work authorities in the Bass Coast Shire and report those findings to Council as soon as practicable. Number 4, consistent with the Victorian Auditor General's report on rehabilitating mines, recognising systemic failures in the Earth Resources Regulator, that Council requests the State Government indemnify it for current and future liabilities on extractive mining projects in the Shire.
Thank you, Councillor Lang. Can I have somebody second that motion? Councillor Holstead. Councillor Lang, you now may speak to your motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This probably speaks to the other motion with regard to extractive mining, and it's a bigger picture motion that attempts to address how extractive mining actually fits into the Bass Coast Shire. So a number of areas have been earmarked by the State Government for sand mining quarries in the Bass Coast, including until recently, one of these was the former Holden Proving Ground bushland in Langlang. So we acknowledge that there is significant growth across Victoria and especially in metropolitan Melbourne with a number of infrastructure projects. And we acknowledge that extractive mining industry is an inherent part of the Shire in many ways. However, we want to make sure, and this motion is about making sure that it does align with what we see as a community to be the priorities for the Bass Coast Shire. So from what I understand, we're going to be experiencing about 2,000 really big trucks full of sand going through the Shire, to put it really simply. How does this work with our agenda to have a community that is founded on beautiful natural spaces, that has huge ecotourism draw card? How do all of these things align, and how does our community cope with this significant growth in extractive mining in an area that has never really seen that as part of its identity, apart from in Wonthaggi maybe 100 or 50 odd years ago at the State Coal Mine? So we don't have a strategy to identify and in some occasions protect certain portions of land that have been earmarked for extractive mining. And we, it doesn't seem like I think that we need a clearer picture on how it aligns with the Bass Coast vision. I'd also like to add the indemnity provisions of this motion, and with regard to the Victorian Auditor General's report, which was released in 2018, and correct me if I understand that the estimates that were undertaken to figure out how much bonds being held by the extractive, by the State Government for extractive mining is in about a $361 million shortfall across Victoria. which basically means that at the end of a mine's life, once those mines are closed, there might not be enough money left over to rehabilitate them. So we want to get a better picture from the state government and work with the state government to figure out what those indemnities might be for us should these mines not be able to get rehabilitated. So that's what this motion is about. It's about getting that bigger picture.
Thank you, Councillor Lang. Councillor Holstead, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, congratulations, Councillor Lang. There's been considerable changes to community sentiment since the work authorities were signed, and that's mainly been around environment. So I think that it's a definite need that we have some sort of strategy around how to deal with the mines that we have in Bass Coast. I agree with Councillor Lang in that it's also a concern, the findings of the Auditor General's report with the Earth Resources Regulator not having enough funds for rehabilitation. And I would be really keen to see what's being held for the sites within Bass Coast to ensure that those sites can be rehabilitated and done in a a satisfactory way, I guess. I think it's absolutely crucial that we have this strategy, and I again applaud Councillor Lang for this motion, which I wholeheartedly support.
Thank you, Councillor Holstead. Would anyone else like to speak to or against this motion? Councillor Lark. Oh, you're on mute, Councillor Lark.
I'd like to put a small amendment.
Okay.
And I'm sorry I haven't raised this previously. It's just come to mind as we've been working through the notice of motion. It's quite a minor change.
What amendment would you like to make?
In section 2, after the words in the second last line, noise amenity, I'd like to put a comma there and add the words and transport impacts.
So noise
It's
amenity.
something that Councillor Lang has alluded to, and I think it would be important to include that specifically.
So noise amenity and transport impact.
Yeah. Well, the community's noise amenity, comma, transport impacts and the intrinsic.
Can I just clarify?
No, it's
Councillor
just
Lang,
adding the comma plus transport impacts.
Councillor Lang, this is your notice of motion. Are you happy to make that amendment?
That's fine. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Lark.
Yep. Happy to make that change, Councillor Lark. Do we need to second with the amendment? Yeah. Councillor Holstead, are you happy to continue as the seconder with those changes? Okay, sorry, I've just been told by governance that an alternative, once it's been amended, it can't be the original mover and the seconder. So does that mean Councillor Lang can now not move her own motion?
She can move her own motion. She can't move the amendment. So Councillor Lark's moved an amendment.
Okay, I need somebody else apart from Councillor Holstead to second that. Councillor Kent is happy to second that amendment. Thank you, Councillor Lark. Would you like to speak to the motion, or that was all you wanted to say?
I think Councillor Lang has covered that aspect. We know the serious impact of B doubles and B triples with the expansion of sand mining extractive industries on Bass Coast and its livability within the community. So I just wanted to emphasise what Councillor Lang was emphasising in the first place, and to ensure that was not overlooked in this particular notice of motion.
Thank you, Councillor Lark. I think Councillor Lang's official term was big trucks, if I remember correctly. So now can we put it to a vote on the amendment before we go any further? So all in favour of allowing the amendment into the original notice of motion? It's Councillors Tasari, Bauer, Lark, Brooks, Whelan, Holstead, Kent, Laserve and Lang. And now would anyone else like to speak to the amended notice of motion? No? Yeah. Councillor Whelan?
Just quickly to emphasise a couple of points. One is this juxtaposition between the visitor economy and mining, and they, in my view, don't fit together. One of the concerns, and I want to flag this with the community, we need to be seriously having a look at once we're briefed on the distinctive areas landscapes statement of planning policy, is that the area in question, and across the Shire for that matter, may be distinctive because of its extractive industry importance, and that we're not necessarily distinctive because of its natural value or its environmental value. So I just want to make those 2 points. So I'm happy to move on with it.
Thanks, Councillor Whelan. Would anyone else like to speak to or against the notice of motion? No? Councillor Lang, would you like to close or put it to a vote?
I'll put it to a vote. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All in favour of the notice of motion with the amendment as it reads? Councillors Tasari, Bauer, Lark, Brooks, Whelan, Holstead, Kent, Laserve and Lang. Carried. Brings us now to Mayor and Councillors' reports. So all councillors will forward on, or will have already forwarded on their reports for the 3 weeks since our last meeting, and they will be up on our website with the minutes. So that brings us now to reports requiring council decisions. So item number H.1 Annual Report 2019-2020 to be presented by Ms. Wasty.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is to present the 19-2020 Annual Report for consideration. Council's achievements and performance in delivering on its major initiatives and capital works program, as well as its financial performance, are highlighted within the body of the annual report. The report was submitted to the Minister as required before the end of November, and the financial results and performance statement have been audited by the Auditor General, who has provided an unqualified opinion, which has been incorporated into the annual report. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Wasty. Can I have somebody move and second the notice of motion, the recommendation? Thank you, Councillor Whelan and Councillor Bauer. Councillor Whelan.
Yeah, look, we were having a really good year when the health issue rained on our parade, but just a couple of the highlights that I'd like to draw on would be the work that was done through that period on foreshore and coastal erosion, and I think in both instances that were significant at that stage, and we've got a few more since, of East Cowes and Inverloch. The biodiversity BioLinks program has been a particularly significant initiative as well, and I congratulate our officers who led that work, our sustainability area. It got interest in a BioLinks from Heels all through to Phillip Island. Of course, the prior notice of motion is something that's trying to rain on that parade as well. We ceased activities in the health and aged care area, which is regrettable in many ways, but was very necessary because of the government's attempts to be continually pushing costs down onto local government through the NDIS in this instance. Arts and Culture Plan was one that was close to my heart that we launched in that period of time, a great bit of work, and we've got some wonderful people working for council in that area, working with the wonderful people in our community. Just a couple of things that are close to our Island Ward hearts: the Transit Centre, the progress on the Cultural Centre, and also the transfer station, but more particularly that extra land we've got there that I think opens up wonderful potential around wetlands and community energy projects. So I think it's been a good year, and I commend the officers how well they work with Bass Coast Health. I was sat through their annual general meeting yesterday. They were throwing bouquets around as well, which is great. But it was a really well managed thing in this area, and I put it down to how well led we were by our respective CEOs and all of those other agencies and our own officers who did an excellent job, and we got good feedback on. So I think, apart from being a rotten year, it was a good year.
Well summarised, Councillor Whelan. Councillor Bauer.
I've got no wind in my spinnaker after that. Well done. To add nothing to add to Michael Whelan's address
Thank
there.
you, Councillor.
Second the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Bauer. Would anyone else like to speak to or against the recommendation? No? Councillor Whelan, we'll put it to a vote.
Yes, thank you.
All in favour of the recommendation as it reads. Councillors Tassari, Bauer, Brooks, Whelan, Holstead, Kent, Lasserve and Lang. Against? And abstain? Councillor Lark. Carried. Item number H2, planning application 190239, 164 to 188 Church Street, Cows. Councillor Rooks, I now ask you to step out of the room or off my screen.
I've foreshadow. We've got an alternative there, Mr. Mayor.
You have an alternative?
Yes.
Okay, your alternative. Have we got it up?
Well, I don't have it in front of me. I'm waiting for the office.
It'll be up on screen in 2 seconds, Councillor Whelan. Maybe? Nope. Maybe 3 seconds, Councillor Whelan.
There we go.
There we go. So if you want to just summarise through your
The key changes to sorry, Mr. Mayor. The key changes to the reported resolution are that the alternative attempts to remove the glamping tents from the foreshore, and also to move the swimming pool and jumping pillow, as it's called, to the recreation area in the middle of the camping reserve. There's already playpen there that would move it to that place.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Whelan. Can I have somebody second Councillor Whelan's alternative motion? Councillor Kent. Councillor Whelan, you now may speak to your motion or to the motion.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. This has been an area that has attracted quite a bit of concern in the community, and largely that has been on the performance probably of the caravan park itself in not managing the overflow parking and the spilling out of the park for excess parking. The officers have done substantial work in that area. I'm noting that some of the community is still not happy with that, but I believe the added component that will help that will be enforcement. And we'll try, I would hope that we can look at exercising greater enforcement in that area on the parking arrangements around the park in the coming summer. Otherwise, this is a modernisation of this facility. It's the trend. It's recently been announced it's been taken over by the NRMA, who I believe are very good operators, having stayed in their facilities elsewhere. I oppose the glamping tents on the foreshore, as was pointed out in the objections, is that other parts of the foreshore, we're trying to move people off the foreshore that have encroached, and here we would be encouraging these people to actually encroach on the foreshore. So I think that is an improvement on the recommendation that's been put up by the officers. And I was reminded by Councillor Kent this morning that during a visit we did ask for a revised recommendation around moving those recreation facilities from the front to a consolidated recreation area within the park to manage the noise effect on the residents. So I commend those changes.
Thank you, Councillor Whelan. Councillor Kent.
I fully agree with the words spoken by Councillor Whelan, and again, in regards to this, received a lot of calls in regards to the parking. I believe one car parking spot has been provided for each resident, but it is an area that does get a lot of traffic, and I believe that enforcement is the way to go during that busy period. Just remembering it's enforcement for everybody. So I'm sure that our local bylaws and the local police will come down hard, but everybody's got to take that on board. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kent. Would anyone else like to speak to or against the motion? Councillor Lasser.
Good, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I think this is a kind of a balanced, compromised approach. Just taking those glamping facilities away from the foreshore, I think it certainly is consistent with our policy positions in other foreshore areas. And the parking one was, after I read the objections, was certainly a pretty large one. But I still acknowledge the need for caravan parks in major central areas like in Cows and that. They play an important part for people that are holidaying here. And we're trying to increase that domestic tourism value in our community. So look, I think it's kind of a win for both sides. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lasser. Councillor Bauer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We've had vigorous discussions on this planning permit before the meeting, and I think the jumping pillow and the pool have been addressed, but I've still got concerns about the car parking because I've seen that street isn't very far away from where I live. And I've seen the congestion with the caravan park. And the one thing that concerns me, the people that come with a boat, that takes a good 3 spots rather than just having 1 spot. And I'm just concerned, and I will vote for this under the assurance of Councillor Kent that it will be patrolled and signage will be appropriate and that we can move in a constructive way there.
Thank you, Councillor Bauer, and I'm sure Councillor Kent, as a councillor, only has as much say as the rest of us, Councillor Bauer, to hope that gets patrolled. Would anyone else like to speak to or against this recommendation? No? Councillor Whelan, would you like to put it to a vote or, summarise and put it to a vote?
Just very quickly, we've lost another caravan park in Cows recently with the one on the main street going, so it makes this one even more important, and it does add a level of accommodation in the town that's very important. And I was going to reiterate that it's our parking officers who will be enforcing, I expect, and they've been dynamite around town anyway, so that's a good message to be putting out there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Whelan. All in favour of the motion, the alternative motion as it reads? Councillors Tassari, Bauer, Lark, Whelan, Holstead, Kent, Lasser and Lang. Carried, and we'll now pause for a minute, remembering that we are still live while we wait for Councillor Rooks to reappear on our screen. I think it's prudent just to remind everyone that we are always live. So. Councillor Rooks, just like that, he's back with us. Councillor Rooks, can I just clarify that you can see and hear us?
Yes.
And we can hear you? Okay. So that we're now up to item number H3, planning application 190293, 58 Bruce Road, Silverleaves, to be presented by Mr. Sturton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is to present to Council planning application 190293, which seeks the development of the land for a single dwelling and vegetation removal at 58 Bruce Road, Silverleaves. The application was advertised to surrounding landowners and occupiers, and a notice was placed on site. 7 objections were received. The application has been assessed against the Bass Coast Planning Scheme, and it's found that the proposal balances the as-of-use right for a dwelling with the requirements of the planning scheme. It is recommended that Council resolve to issue a notice of decision to grant a planning permit for 58 Bruce Road, Silverleaves. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Sturton. Can I have somebody move and second this recommendation? Councillor Rooks, and seconded Councillor Holstead. Councillor Rooks.
Thanks, Mayor Tazari. I appreciate from the community there's been a number of concerns in regards to this application. In particular, it's a large bulky house, just over 7 metres in height, has vegetation removal and issues with water runoff. And all this in a sensitive area such as Silverleaves. In response, the applicant made a number of changes and removed the proposed workshop at the front of the site, converted the sealed driveway to a gravel driveway, and made amendments to the finished floor level, so all habitable areas are now located above the applicable flood level. Furthermore, the application also triggered a number of planning clauses, including land subject to inundation overlay, bushfire management overlay, vegetation protection overlay, and the design and development overlay. However, the application is in accordance with all such overlays, and on that basis, I support the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Rooks. Councillor Holstead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have nothing further to add. I'd support Councillor Rooks' summarisation on that.
Thank you, Councillor Holstead. Would anyone else like to speak to or against the recommendation? No? Councillor Rooks, would you like to summarise and put it straight to a vote?
A vote, please.
Thank you, Councillor Rooks. All in favour of the recommendation as it reads. Councillors Tassari, Bauer, Lark, Holstead, Kent, Lang and Rooks, and against Councillor Lasserve and Whelan. Carried. Item number H4, planning application 20080 21 Highview Crescent, Surf Beach, to be presented by Mr. Sturton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is to present to Council planning application 20080, which seeks the development of the land for a second dwelling at 21 Highview Crescent, Surf Beach. The application was advertised to surrounding landowners and occupiers, and the notice was placed on site. 5 objections were received. The application has been assessed against the Bass Coast Planning Scheme, and it is recommended the Council resolve to issue a notice of decision to grant a planning permit. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Sturton. Can I have somebody move and second the recommendation as it reads? Councillor Holstead, and seconded Councillor Kent. Councillor Holstead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I can understand there's been a bit of community angst around this application, and I can understand the reasons why, with the drainage and the roads in Surf Beach needing considerable work. However, the applicant has presented everything that's within the planning scheme. So I believe that if this does go to VCAT, they will receive a permit for it. And therefore, I think council needs to support it in this instance. But I would just flag, we also probably need to look at more seriously the surrounding areas, because I believe we're setting a bit of a precedence with subdivision of land in this area, having VCAT having approved one previously, and therefore the supporting infrastructure is becoming pretty critical. That would be my only point.
Thank you, Councillor Holstead. Councillor Kent.
Yes, last year I put an objection into an application in Dunlaven, and that got through VCAT approved there. This application's for a single-storey building, and I truthfully believe that it would get through VCAT very easily. In saying that, I still have concerns, and I think we need to look at our planning in the future. And to me, that's the way to go, that we need to put it into black and white to give the community clarity of what they can and can't do with their blocks. Remembering that a lot of these blocks are 1,000 square metres, which is substantial land, but people purchase those blocks with the understanding that they wanted a large block too. So we've got to get the balance right, and we've got to hear from the community. And look, that may take up to 2 years, but I think it's worth doing for the whole of Bass Coast. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kent. Would anyone else like to speak to or against this recommendation? Councillor Lang.
If I may, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would just like to talk about the bigger picture a little bit with regard to what Councillor Halstead and Councillor Kent said. I think it's a very difficult, council has a very difficult position here with these kinds of decisions, because while we don't want our town boundaries to increase, there is an increasing amount of people who are choosing to call this place home across the Shire. And so population density is something we're going to have to consider within constrained town boundaries or extending town boundaries. So I suppose it's a very difficult balance to achieve, and I think it's something that I don't think rejecting planning applications in an ad hoc way is the right mechanism for addressing the bigger picture issues. And so that is why I will be supporting the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Lang. Would anyone else like to speak to or against? Councillor Whelan.
Very quickly, I want to say that I used to live just around the corner in the Esplanade here, and I can vouch for the fact that it gets wet. It does get very, it is an issue, as indeed are the roads. What's important here is it's on the top of our roads and drainage list, and I think the opportunity will be there for local residents to fix both of those issues very soon, and I encourage them to do so. If I was still living there, that would have been very high on my priority list, I can say that for sure. But there's, the very big blocks, no vegetation to be cleared. I think it's something I also didn't object to the one beside me when I lived there, which was a subdivision into two units. So I'll be supporting it.
Thank you, Councillor Whelan. Would anyone else like to speak to or against this recommendation? Councillor Bauer.
Just quickly, Mr. Mayor, through you. I think what Councillor Lang said is the pivotal point of this. It's not fair on our officers who prepare these reports if they work on the criteria we have. We need a strategy, and it's something we should look at. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Councillor Bauer. Councillor Lasser.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I'll be voting against this application. It doesn't sit right with me that we can get these reduction in the subdivisions on estates that are historical problems with road drainage and unmade roads, unsealed roads. And until we get that part of the infrastructure right, I don't think infill's the way to go. And I think there's also something to be said to, with the report identifying it's close to services, I don't believe that's true. So what we're doing is we could be potentially, doubling the population of an area that's got no service provisions at all. So I'll be voting against it. And until we get it right in the planning scheme, I'm not prepared to, kind of continue to add these ones to the list.
Thank you, Councillor Lasser. Would anyone else like to speak to or against? No? Councillor Halstead, would you like to summarise or put it to a vote?
Just quickly on that point that Councillor Lasser raised in relation to proximity to services and facilities, and I did question that when considering this application, and that again is another area that we need to put some firm guidelines in around, because what is considered close proximity? When I did my homework, it was 10 kilometres to Cowes, 9 kilometres to San Remo. The bus comes every 3 to 4 hours, takes 15 minutes to go one way, 10 minutes to go to the other way. So is that considered to be close proximity? That's the question. I think that can also be addressed through our planning provisions. I also support Councillor Kent in his suggestion that we do need to get these provisions right. And I agree with him in that people do purchase properties that are on large blocks for a reason. And we're seeing in a number of new estates that there's some big blocks being approved, and then people are applying to subdivide them, and those who have bought in the area for a 900 square metre block, bought in the area thinking that all the houses in that area would be 900 square metres. So I really think that does need to be addressed, almost as importantly as affordable housing. You know, there needs to be a diversity in our housing. When we talk about affordable housing, it's often achieved through smaller blocks so that we can make it affordable. But I think we also do need to have that diversity and put some protections around the larger blocks for those people who would prefer to have a bit of space around them. So, but they're all things that need to be addressed through the planning provisions. And unfortunately, we don't have those tools to be able to refuse this application. So therefore, I'm supporting. Thank you.
Councillor Holstead, we'll put it to a vote. All in favour of the recommendation as it reads. Councillor Tassari, Bauer, Lark, Whelan, Holstead, Kent, Lang and Rooks, and against Councillor Lassie. Carried. Item number H5, Amendment C.1 consideration of planning panel recommendation to be presented by Mr. Sturton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is for Council to consider the recommendations of the planning panel regarding the planning scheme amendment C.150. This proponent-led amendment seeks to rezone the site from low-density residential zone to general residential zone Schedule 1 to the land at 126 Shetland Heights Road, San Remo. The amendment was exhibited for 1 month from 16th of April 2020 to 16th of May 2020 and attracted 27 submissions, which included 19 letters of support, 3 mutual responses and 5 objections. It is recommended that Council resolve to adopt Amendment C.150 with the changes recommended by the planning panel and to send the amendment to the Minister for Planning for approval. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Sturton. Can I have somebody move and second this recommendation? Councillor Holstead, you just got there before Councillor Kent. Councillor Holstead, you may speak to the recommendation. Oh, you're on mute. That's strike 2.
I'm happy if Councillor Kent wants to move and I'll second.
You're beating to it, sorry, Councillor Holstead.
Okay, sorry. This one I think is really just a formality. This site has been used for this. For how they're proposing to use it anyway, and it's really just the paperwork that needs to be signed off. I would say that there might be some concern in the community around the ceiling of Shetland Heights Road, and that this may have some impact in that. It shouldn't have any impact. There's no further population moving into the area. It's just a paperwork thing that needs to be done. So we'll deal with the Shetland Heights Road on another time.
Thank you, Councillor Holstead. Thinking on your feet. Councillor Kent.
Yes, thank you for that. Of course, everybody knows this is the old golf course apartments. This recommendation will give a bit of strength to the ownership, the owners of those apartments. It'll allow body corporate to work better there and to cover the owners and also cover the community insurance-wise. And it will also give more responsibility to the owners of those apartments in regards to facilities surrounding that area too. So, yeah, look, it's just to tick the box and let's move on with it.
Thank you, Councillor Kent. Would anyone else like to speak to or against this recommendation? No? Councillor Holstead, would you like to put it straight to a vote? Yep, put it to a vote. All in favour of the recommendation as it reads. Councillors Tassari, Bauer, Lark, Whelan, Holstead, Kent, Laserve, Lang and Rooks. Carried. Item number H6, proposed development plan endorsements, Grantville mixed use zone precinct, to be presented by Mr. Sturton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is for Council to consider the endorsement of the development plan for the land at 1521 and 1545 Bass Highway, Grantville. The land is proposed to be developed for the use of a new supermarket, cafe, retail space, a medical centre and pharmacy, a service station, residential dwellings and car parking. The application was advertised and received 10 submissions, 8 in support and 2 raising concerns. The proposal has been assessed and found to be in alignment with the Bass Coast planning scheme. It is recommended the council provide conditional consent to the development plan. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Sturton. Can I have somebody move and second this recommendation? Oh, Councillor Sturton.
The guns.
The three board councillors had their hands, their feet and the whole lot up. So Councillor Lasserve, seconded by Councillor Kent.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. All I can say to the council, this has been a long time coming, but to say to the community, to give them some surety around the fact that this is a development plan, not the planning permit for this development. It's indicative and gives them an indication of, you know, what is coming, and it's a part of the staging of the next stage. When we get a further details, more detailed design, and that will give certainty about exactly what it is. But you know, we've all acknowledged that Grantville is a great place, and this will help build on that tradition. And hopefully, I was very pleased to see that there were so many letters of support, which is a turnaround than usual for council. So good on the community for getting behind it. I think it'll be a great building block for Grantville to kind of take that next step and be that northern entrance into Bass Coast.
Thank you, Councillor Lasserve. Councillor Kent.
I think Councillor Lasserve nearly took everything away from me. So as long as the community remembers, this is just the first step. And we, as a council, we have to assist those private enterprises who are investing their millions of dollars out of their own pocket to produce the supermarkets, fuel stations and land. Remembering it's not our money, it's their money, and they're taking the chance. So the community's got to get together and support them when they do come, and they will come, to produce a supermarket and fuel station. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kent. Councillor Holstead. I just automatically went there. Sorry, Councillor Holstead.
I won't say too much more. I'm just really thrilled to see this on the agenda, and I'm excited for the community who are really desperate for this to get moving. So I'll just leave it at that, and hope all those councillors' hands are about to go up.
Thank you, Councillor Holstead. Would anyone like to speak against this, or to or against this recommendation? No? No? Councillor Lasserve, would you like to summarise or put it straight to a vote?
Oh, look, I think we can put it straight to a vote, Mr. Mayor. I think the community have waited long enough.
Thank you, Councillor Lasserve. All in favour of the recommendation as it reads? Councillors Tassari, Bauer, Lark, Whelan, Holstead, Kent, Lasserve, Lang and Wilkes. Carried.
Excellent. Thank you.
Item number H7, Draft Community Engagement Policy, to be presented by Mr. Stefani.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The new Victorian Local Government Act 2020 requires councils to develop and adopt a community engagement policy by March 2021. The policy must include the principles of deliberative engagement and seek consultation with the community. This report recommends that council receive the draft community engagement policy in 2021 and release it to the community for a period of community engagement until the 17th of January next year. The draft policy is based on the current 2015 version and includes the new deliberative engagement principles. Community engagement methods are reviewed regularly and are applied to suit the audience and projects or services being delivered. It's proposed that the draft policy be published on Council's website and promoted through a range of communication methods to obtain feedback and then provide a detailed report back to Council in February. The policy will help guide Council as it prepares the deliberative engagement plans to develop a new community vision, council plan and financial plan over the next 10 months. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Stefani. I have somebody move and second the recommendation as it reads. Councillor Lang and seconded. Councillor Whelan. Councillor Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I support the recommendations. I'm particularly excited about this new level of community engagement that we will be entering into with the community. Deliberative engagement, bit of a catchphrase, but like my big trucks, I like short words. It just basically means that we want people to really have a very, very active role, the community to have a very, very active role in making decisions that will impact the entire community. So I suppose it makes our job in many ways a little bit easier because it helps us get that direct connection with people in the community, and I would encourage councillors to support it. I think that, yeah, it's a bit of a crazy year to be getting people to undertake some community engagement, but it's also peak time for a lot of residents who and ratepayers who might not live here during the other parts of the year that come down to also have some input through the variety of ways that they might be able to connect with influencing how we'd like to hear from them.
Thank you, Councillor Lang. Councillor Whelan.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Slight variation of what Councillor Lang said, in the sense that I want to throw a bouquet to our communications department and our officers generally for the way they've engaged over the last term. And in fact, Council won an award for its engagement on the council plan. This is the state government telling local governments how to suck eggs. This particular council has been good at sucking eggs for a while. As I say, won an award for their effort last time in the council plan. One of the issues, and I want the community to understand this, is that this has to be adopted by the 1st of March. That is set out in the legislation. As I say, one of the early indicators on the Local Government Act is that it would be a head of power type piece of legislation. It's not. It's prescriptive, and I think it's the poorer for that. It's limiting. Look, we can work well with this. The point I'm trying to make is that council was already largely doing this level of consultation, and also very, very strong on that deliberative model, and the International Association for Public Participation. Something's been put to me in other forums, and it's something that I know our officers are well and truly briefed on. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Whelan. Would anyone else like to speak to or against? Councillor Kent, you just got there before Councillor Lark.
Thank you, Mayor. It always worries me that we're engaging with the community about engagement with the community and making sure that we have engaged. I've heard the words from Councillor Whelan, and I agree with them 100%. But there is always room for improvement, and I'll be the first one to put up my hand that over the last 4 years, on the odd occasion, I think that I'll put my hand up that I may have not engaged sufficiently. So I think there's always room for improvement, and a lot of that comes from having a debrief of how we've gone in the past. But again, Councillor Whelan's words, generally speaking, we've done a great job. The council officers do a great job, and I think we've just got to improve on top of that. Simple as that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kent. Councillor Lark.
Thank you, Mayor Tessari. I think the model that's been in place for the last council tenure was good. I think this is an improvement in that it will focus on a much broader and deliberative engagement with more people throughout the community and more broadly. I think in the past, my perception has been that council's agenda to a certain extent has been driven by the 20% of the community. If you look at Pareto, 80-20 model, I think the extremes within the community, both left and right, have driven the agenda, and there's an 80% silent majority for whatever reason, whether they're able to be contacted in the community or not, or they're disengaged or whatever. I think the challenge will be to cut across the interest groups, though important, to get to the broader demographic and psychographic components within our community, to ensure there's a much more balanced vision for the community and agenda driven by the community. So the model is good. It's just the touch points that we just need to be aware of to ensure that we have broad engagement rather than narrow engagement.
Thank you, Councillor Lark. Would anyone else like to speak to or against this recommendation? Councillor Bauer.
I'm not going to speak against the recommendation, through you, Mr. Mayor. But I will bring up an example where I believe that the model has fallen down. And let's take the car ferry issue when it was first raised. The properties that were almost adjacent to where one of the sites where nobody even heard from Bass Coast Shire, and there was a lot of, how could I say, backpedaling to get people involved. And I do hope that the new model that's being put here addresses directly people impacted by various issues, as well as the broader brushstrokes of issues that we want to do. I see this as a two-tier thing, whereby there's one thing is the actual issue that, or the policy we wish to move forward and generate with, and then there is the actual engagement of the people who can be impacted. And I just want to put it out there that I think the second part, the people who will be impacted are definitely brought into the net early. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bauer. Would anyone else like to speak to or against this recommendation? No? Councillor Lang, would you like to summarise or put it to a vote?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just quickly, I will summarise. Thank you, Councillor Whelan, for your contribution, and also to Councillor Kent, Councillor Lark and Councillor Bauer. Perhaps I suppose this is building, I think what's clear is that this is building on what we have already achieved, and maybe there's an opportunity for another award somewhere down the track for our officers who work really hard in this space. Community engagement and communications is something that I've had a lot of experience in my past work. So I think the more that we can connect with people, the better relationships we can build. So I would recommend that councillors support this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Lang. Let's put it to a vote. All in favour of the recommendation as it reads. Councillors Tassari, Bauer, Lark, Whelan, Holstead, Kent, Laserve, Lang and Rooks. Carried. Item number H8, Council Meeting Live Stream Trial Report to be presented by Mr. Stephen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is to present Council with the results of the 6-month live streaming trial. Live streaming provides members of the community access to observe Council meetings without physically attending them. This has provided an alternative for community members who cannot attend due to COVID-19 restrictions in place for social distancing. Although Council is yet to live stream a meeting from our Council chamber, the experience of live streaming virtual meetings has been positive, and officers are confident that they will be able to live stream from the chamber when it's appropriate to do so. On average, 46 individuals tuned in for at least part of the live stream, while on average approximately 118 viewed at least part of each video once the live stream was complete. This report recommends that live streaming council meetings to council's website continues, including the voice to text closed captions for hearing impaired members of the community. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Stephanie. Can I have somebody move and second that recommendation? Councillor Bauer, and seconded. Councillor Holstead. Councillor Bauer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I fully endorse live streaming of the council meeting. It even dovetails into the last motion that we just passed about community engagement. Not everybody can come into the chamber and sit in the chair and listen. It broadens the scope. This came up originally in 2018 that we should do this, and it's one of the few benefits that COVID has brought to our meetings is the fact that we are now live streaming and we can see it works. And I fully and wholeheartedly endorse this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Bauer. Councillor Holstead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Nothing further to add.
Thank you, Councillor Holstead. Would anyone else like to speak to or against this recommendation? No? Councillor Bauer, would you like to put it straight to a vote?
I would like to put it straight to a vote. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Bauer. All in favour of the recommendation as it reads. Councillors Tassari, Bauer, Lark, Whelan, Holstead, Kent, Laserve, Lang and Rooks. Carried. Item number H9, Community Grants. Councillor Rooks, I ask you to disappear from my screen and go and get a coffee. And just clarify that Councillor Rooks has left the building. Okay, so item number H9 Community Grants 2020 Round 2 Funding Recommendation to be presented by Ms Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The purpose of this report is to seek council endorsement of Round 2 2020 Community Grant Recommendations as presented by council officers. The officers' recommendations are based on the funding criteria adopted by council at its ordinary meeting held on the 21st of October 2015. Applications have been reviewed and funding recommendations made by an assessment panel of council officers. In total, 59 applications were submitted for Round 2 2020 community grants, with an overall request for just over $307,000 in grant funding. This report recommends 43 projects totaling $127,000, excluding GST, to be funded, which is within council's allocated budget for the program. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Ms Kennedy. Can I have somebody move and second the recommendations? No, just Councillor Lasserve, just ahead of Councillor Kent. Councillor Lasserve.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Sorry about that. Look, I think it's well, it's one of the good parts of council being able to hand out grants to community groups. You know, they really are the backbone of the council. People doing projects in their communities, actively participating in different things. So, look, I just endorse the recommendation and happy to move forward with it.
Thank you, Councillor Lasserve. Councillor Kent.
I've got nothing to add to that, just waiting to see the final outcome.
Thank you, Councillor Kent. Would anyone else like to speak to or against this recommendation? Councillor Lark. Oh, I thought you were going to go then, Councillor Lark.
No, I just want to compliment council and officers for holding the line to follow through with this community grants scheme, which is in addition to the business and community grants recovery under COVID-19. I think it's amazing that council has continued this program, notwithstanding the significant challenges for our businesses and communities and the support given under the umbrella of the COVID-19 recovery grants. So excellent result all around to hold the line in that regard.
Well said, Councillor Lark. Would anyone else like to speak to or against this recommendation? No? We'll put it to, sorry, Councillor Lasserve, would you like to summarise? Or put it to the vote?
Yeah, no, just put it to the vote. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Lasserve. All in favour of the recommendation as it reads, Councillors Tassari, Bauer, Lark, Whelan, Holstead, Kent, Lasserve and Lane. Carried. And we'll just pause for a second while we wait for Councillor Rooks to come back in. Looks like he's still waiting for the kettle to boil. We have to wait much longer. I'm going to you, Councillor Kent, to start singing Christmas carols. Or just as well.
Where is he?
All right, Councillor Kent, you want to start with Little Drummer Boy? No?
And you are doing so well too, Mr Mayor.
I know, Councillor Bauer, I know. Here we go.
You were good with the tutu, Mr Mayor. How about a bit of a serenade with the Christmas carols?
Thank you, Councillor Holstead. Okay, I would have if Councillor Brooks didn't make it back, but here he is. So, all right, can I just clarify, Councillor Brooks, you can hear us okay?
Yes, I can.
Okay, and you can see us okay?
Yes, I can.
Okay, item number H10, proposed lease of Cape Paterson Surf Life Saving Club to be presented by Mr. Phil Malta.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is to commence statutory proceedings under the 1989 Local Government Act for a lease to help support the Cape Paterson Surf Life Saving Club. The club recently built a new fit-for-purpose building with state and council support, as well as club resources. Following the expiry of the previous lease, a 20-year lease is proposed to enable the club to have tenancy security to benefit from its investment in the property. As the proposed lease is for a 20-year period, a statutory Section 223 public submission process needs to be commenced pursuant to the approval of a new lease. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Phil Malta. Can I have somebody move and second this recommendation? Councillor Lang, and seconded Councillor Lark. Councillor Lang.
I would encourage councillors to, thank you, Mr. Mayor, I would encourage councillors to support this motion. The Cape Paterson Surf Life Saving Club for the past 60 years, this 60 years has been working diligently to keep the community safe, beachgoers safe, and is an integral part of Cape Paterson. Even council has contributed $600,000 previously to the construction of the brand new Cape Paterson Surf Life Saving Club, which had to stay closed for a huge portion of the year, regrettably, due to COVID, and fortunately is now already being used by patrollers. So it's an important community asset, and I would encourage councillors to support the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Lang. Councillor Lark.
Thank you, Mayor Tessari. This project is a classic example of a community-led project in concert with council and state government support. And I have no hesitation in supporting this leasing arrangement for the benefit and safety of our community and the broader users of this facility. It's a great community complex, and I'm looking forward to its opening formally.
Thank you, Councillor Lark. Can I have anyone else like to speak to or against this recommendation? No? Councillor Lang, put it straight to a vote.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you.
All in favour of the recommendation as it reads. Councillors Tessari, Bauer, Lark, Whelan, Holstead, Kent, Laserve, Lang and Rooks. Carried. Item number H11, proposed lease for the Regional University Centre in Wonthaggi, to be presented by Mr. Phil Malta.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is to commence statutory procedures under the Local Government Act 1989 for a lease to help support the establishment of a new regional university centre in Wonthaggi. In June 2020, the Commonwealth announced that Country Universities Centre, Bass Coast, was successful in securing funding to establish a new regional university centre in Wonthaggi. This funding application was led by Council. A 20-year lease is appropriate as it will provide the tenant with the necessary security of tenure to provide confidence in longevity and support investment. As the proposed lease is for a 20-year period, a statutory Section 223 public submission process needs to be commenced pursuant to the approval of a new lease. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Phil Malta. Can I have somebody move and second this recommendation as it reads? Councillor Whelan, and seconded Councillor Laserve. Councillor Whelan.
I say this largely on your behalf, Mr. Mayor, because I know you've ridden this one all the way, and it's been a great project going after the $2 million for the establishment of the university. It provides a wonderful facility in our Shire for young people who are pursuing tertiary studies. We have a low completion rate on tertiary studies, I think largely because of the remoteness and a whole range of issues around having to carry out those studies in Melbourne. So this is a support facility for those people. it's effectively this is a procedural thing to put it out to the public. At least I hope it is. So a council is effectively subsidising this thing on an ongoing basis, and it's worth every dollar of it, $60,000 in foregone rent. But this is a great use of council facilities. I just think I can't say enough about it. And congratulations to yourself, the CEO, and all of your staff who have worked on this, and those community people that participated on the steering committee. And it's just an excellent thing for our area.
Thank you, Councillor Whelan, and thank you for the kind words, but it was a collective effort by the whole lot of us, so the whole council group deserves a pat on the back. Councillor Lasserve.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And yes, I endorse what Councillor Whelan said about the commitment. You know, really, it's a great project. It's great to have the come to the end of that advocacy and the commitment the council made to it as a part of our high priority on our advocacy list, and of course to this federal funding that we received. Opens first term. My understanding is 2021 should be a good year for the first term of opening of this uni. And I think it really indicates that the commitment of Bass Coast into local education, education of, well, it's not just younger people these days that go back to uni or whatever, but, you know, that training up that skill set that we'll need into the future, I think is really important. And the fact that it'll have local employment opportunities too. So, you know, congratulations to all involved. I think this is a real winner. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lasserve. Would anyone else like to speak to or against this recommendation? Councillor Bauer, you just got there ahead of Councillor Lark.
All right. First of all, I endorse what Councillor Whelan and Lasserve said about the group that brought this to fruition. Congratulations. And I would like to just add to what Councillor Lasserve just said. It's an extension of the development of our education system, especially Wonthaggi and the surrounding areas can also use it. But it's also a real opener for the proposed new high school in San Remo, which I hope one day goes from a junior high school to a fully fledged high school to year 12, so that those children can also use this facility and it becomes a complete Shire hub. And I think it's a really, really great step forward, and I fully endorse it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bauer. Councillor Lark.
I also want to congratulate the advocacy team that made their proposals at the federal level and wholeheartedly support the proposed lease arrangements. And whilst it will benefit a broad range of people within our community, hopefully it will enable young people to transition to tertiary education without the need to go to Melbourne and elsewhere. We have a drain on our young people leaving Bass Coast Shire to do tertiary education. Then they go into work elsewhere and they don't come back perhaps until they're 45 or 55. So I think this is a great opportunity to retain our young people and give them the facility that they so richly deserve. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lark, and I'll make sure to pass on that congratulations to our advocacy team. Would anyone else like to speak to or against this recommendation? No? Councillor Whelan, would you like to summarise or put it to a vote?
Happy for the vote.
All in favour of the recommendation as it reads. Councillors Tassari, Bauer, Lark, Whelan, Holstead, Kent, Lasserve, Lang and Rooks. Carried. Item number H12, appointment of council committees and external committees, to be presented by Mr. Phil Maltar.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This report recommends that council appoints the mayor and other councillor representatives to a number of council committees and external committees. Council representation is required in these committees to enable it to meet its legislative obligations, enhance its involvement in community activities, and to advocate on behalf of its community. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Phil Maltar. It's just been asked, would the councillors like to see the list on the screen, or they're comfortable with them and they'll be presented in the minutes? Can I just get a show of hands if you'd like to see them on the screen?
Sorry. Or you could just have them emailed to me, please. I missed it. Paterson.
Okay, we'll just send them through, but they will be presented for community on the minutes. So can I have somebody move and second the recommendation, please? Sorry, I've just lost my way for a minute. Okay, so somebody move and second. Councillor Halstead and seconded. Councillor Kent. Councillor Halstead.
Don't have anything to add there, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Well done again, Councillor Halstead. Councillor Kent, you seem to wait until Councillor Halstead puts her hand up. No, you've got nothing to add. Would anyone else like to speak to or against this recommendation? No, Councillor Halstead, we'll put it straight to a vote.
Yes,
All in
please.
favour, Councillors Tassari, Bauer, Lark, Whelan, Halstead, Kent, Laserve, Lang and Rooks. Carried. Item number H13, council meeting scheduled for 2021 to be presented by Mr. Phil Malta.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is to recommend the council meeting schedule for 2021. Council is required by its governance rules to provide an annual schedule of meetings. The report provides for the ongoing provision of virtual meetings as permitted by the COVID-19 Omnibus emergency measures until 26 April 2021. These meetings will be live streamed. It also recommends that council advocate to the Minister of Local Government for ongoing options for council to meet in a virtual environment or a hybrid physical virtual environment after April 2021. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Phil Malta. Can I have somebody move and second the recommendation as it reads? Councillor Kent and seconded Councillor Whelan. Councillor Kent.
Let's vote.
Thank you, Councillor Kent. Councillor Whelan, anything to add? Okay, anyone want to speak to or against this recommendation? No, we'll put it to a vote. All in favour of the recommendation as it reads. Councillors Tassari, Lark, Whelan, Halstead, Kent, Laserve, Lang and Rooks. Carried. Item number H14, COVID-19 Financial Hardship Policy, to be presented by Mr. Phil Malta.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The updated COVID-19 Financial Hardship Policy extends the provision of this support, which was scheduled to sunset in December 2020 to the end of June 2021. While the take-up of the financial hardship support has been lower than projected, it is providing important support to ratepayers who have been impacted through the loss of employment or significant business losses as a result of the pandemic. The proposed measures, which have been benchmarked within the local government sector, complement Commonwealth and state government support. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Phil Malta. Can I have somebody move and second the recommendation as it reads? Councillor Whelan and seconded Councillor Laserve. Councillor Whelan.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Look, as the director said, this is an extension of the policy that we put in place some time ago. We're not fully through the woods on this, even though we're starting to see a bit of daylight with this problem. So I think it's prudent to do so, prudent to take this action, and I think that's probably enough on it. It's getting to sound a bit like Christmas, I guess, but that we've probably said enough on it in the sense that we've debated this fully before in terms of the introduction of the policy the first time through. So, yes, I commend it.
Thank you, Councillor Whelan. Councillor Laserve.
Nothing further to add, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. Happy to put it to the vote.
Councillor Laserve. Would anyone else like to speak to or against this recommendation? No. Councillor Whelan, put it to a vote. Put it to a vote. All in favour of the recommendation as it reads. Councillors Tassari, Lark, Whelan, Halstead, Bauer, Laserve, Lang and Rooks. Carried. Item number H15, award tender number 20016, Fincher Street Renewal, to be presented by Mr. Phil Malta.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This report recommends the award of the Fincher Street roadworks to SR Excavations Pty Limited. The recommended provider submitted the lowest price tender and also scored comfortably above the other tenderers on the qualitative criteria for this tender. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Philmalter. Can I have somebody move and second the recommendation? Councillor Lark and seconded Councillor Lang. Councillor Lark. I looked away, Councillor Lark, so I'm not sure if your mic was off.
I draw on earlier comments made by various councillors about our challenges that we have in relation to roads, drainage and footpaths. Fortunately, the Commonwealth came to the party with a local roads and community infrastructure program grant for this particular project. The project was shovel ready, it fitted the budget, and it's an important infrastructure renewal project. And I recommend that we move forward and accept the tender for this particular project. It's fully funded by the Commonwealth.
Thank you, Councillor Lark. Councillor Lang.
Nothing further to add. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Lang. Would anyone else like to speak to or against this recommendation? No. Councillor Lark, put it to a vote.
Put it to a vote.
All in favour of the recommendation as it reads. Councillors Tassari, Bauer, Lark, Whelan, Holstead, Kent, Laserve, Lang and Rooks. Carried. Item number H16. Major initiatives, finance and capital works first quarter report to be presented by Mr. Philmalter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This report provides Council with a progress report on the first quarter performance for our major initiatives, capital works and operating financial results. All 11 major initiatives have been assessed as being on track. The review of the financial performance at the end of the first quarter has confirmed that Council is on track, and while there have been a number of changes in some of the revenue and expenditure items, these are largely related to additional grant funding for the delivery of capital projects and additional labour, which has been offset by additional grants from the Working for Victoria State Government Initiative. These additional revenue items are also offset by additional capital expenses. Council's income statement projections have been impacted by the delayed payment of the COVID-19 grants, which took place in July rather than June. And while this overrun is fully offset by a transfer from Council's financial reserves, it does have an impact on the underlying surplus. Council continues to forecast a strong financial position for 2021, and details of the key forecast metrics are set out in the body of this report. Council has been impacted by COVID-19 and election-related delays in progressing delivery of its record capital program, with only $1.8 million expended in the first quarter. Planning for the program is more advanced, with over $9 million committed to contractors, and as the state returns to normal, we expect the program delivery to gain momentum. Opportunities to improve capital works program delivery are being implemented, including additional project management resources, development of a project management framework, and portal and improvements to the scoping process. A further more detailed review on the capital works program delivery will be undertaken as part of the mid-year review, at which stage we will be able to assess the likely full-year capital works projections. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Philmalter. Can I have somebody move and second the recommendations? Councillor Whelan and seconded Councillor Holstead. Councillor Whelan.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, the Mr. Philmalter presented to the Audit Committee on Tuesday or yesterday about this report, and he was commended by the acting chair for his report. And I think I feel confident that in very tough times, very tough circumstances, these issues that are represented in this report are very well managed. I'd like to draw attention to the record capital program of $41.6 million. And we're really trying to get on with things. We've been held up a little bit with COVID, and I note that while the capital program is behind because of that, we couldn't get the contractors to bid during that period of time for good reason. I really expect the officers to have their skates on, as I'm sure they will, and we'll really hit some momentum early in the new year on this program. As I said, it was commended by the audit committee, and they dive in on any issues that they can see. So I was heartened by that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Whelan. Councillor Holstead.
No, nothing further to add, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Holstead. Would anyone else like to speak to or against the recommendations? No? Okay, Councillor Whelan, put it to a vote. Put it to a vote. All in favour of the recommendations as it reads. Councillors Tassari, Bauer, Whelan, Holstead, Kent, Laserve, Lang and Brooks. And against? And abstain? Carried. Okay, brings us now to the statutory reports. So I now ask for somebody to move and second that the agenda items I1 to I4 be considered as a block. Councillor Whelan, and seconded. Councillor Laserve. All in favour. Councillor Tassari, Bauer, Lark, Whelan, Holstead, Kent, Laserve, Lang and Brooks. Carried. Would anyone like to speak to any of the reports? No? So can I have asked now that Councillor Lark, sorry, did you want to speak to a report?
I just wanted to refer to the permits issued report and note the significant activity that's happening in the Western Port Ward and the Bunurong Ward.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Lark. Would anyone else like to speak to the reports? No? So can I have somebody move and second that the recommendations attached to the agenda items I1 to I4 be adopted? Councillor Laserve, seconded. Councillor Whelan. All in favour. Councillor Tassari, Bauer, Lark, Whelan, Holstead, Kent, Laserve, Lang and Rooks. Carried. Any urgent business? I have none. Okay, so that brings us to the end of our live meeting. So Council continues to monitor and implement the COVID-19, or continues to monitor the COVID-19 pandemic response and restrictions set out by the state and federal government. Council at this stage will continue to pause on the community connection sessions. The next council meeting will be held virtually on the 17th of February 2021, commencing at 1 o'clock, and it will be open to the public via live stream. Just before closing the live meeting, I just would like to, on behalf of all the councillors and the council staff, wish everybody out there a Merry Christmas and a happy and, more importantly, a safe New Year. Councillor Bauer's been waiting to put that hat on all day. And can I just reiterate, please, when you get to the beach and you're in such an excitement to get into our beautiful oceans that we have down here at Bass Coast, you just take 5 minutes to assess the situation around you and familiarise yourself with the surroundings, and then have a good time swimming between the flags and on a safe patrolled beach. Please have a safe Christmas and a happy New Year. Have a motion that the meeting be closed to the members of the public in accordance with Section 66 of the Local Government Act 2020 to consider items that council business information being information that would be prejudiced to the council's position in commercial negotiations if prematurely released. And also personal information being information which is released would result in an unreasonable disclosure of information about any person or their personal affairs. Can I have somebody move and second that? Councillor Bauer, seconded by Councillor Whelan. All in favour? Councillors Tassari, Bauer, Lark, Whelan, Holstead, Kent, Laserve, Lang and Rooks. Carried. Thank you for watching our live stream, and the meeting will now be closed to the public. If we could all just sit here and pause for a minute while we wait for the publication to close.